Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the agenda for the meeting of the Committee of the Whole meeting, November 26, 2018, of the DeKalb City Council. Prior to the start of tonight's Committee of the Whole meeting, on which we only have one consideration, we will ask that anyone who would like to speak to either the one item on the agenda tonight, or for that matter, any member or any item of interest, to kindly fill out a speaker request form. They're in the back foyer, and give it to our city clerk, Lynn Fazekas, who will get it up to me and will get you on in the appropriate spot. With that, roll call, please.
Jacobson. Finucane.
Here.
Marquardt.
Here.
Fagan.
Here.
Noriko. Verbeek.
Here.
Favor.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
6 present.
Thank you. For your information, Alderman Jacobson from the First Ward will not be with us this evening. Alderman Noriko has indicated that she may be late for this Committee of the Whole meeting, but is expected to join us either in this meeting or prior to the start of our regular meeting tonight. Seeing that there is no public participation, anyone would like to speak, we will move on to the one consideration that we have tonight, and that is public education and government fee. I'm going to ask our Information Technology Director, Mark Thorson, to address this item, please.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and the community. Tonight I'll be presenting for public discussion and for some consent, for some direction from the community to look at the possibility of public education and government channel funding as a revenue option. When I came on board as the IT director, through public feedback and also from this council and past council, it was made very clear to me that Channel 14 is a very critical part of the community, and since that time I've been looking at ways to increase sustainability and be able to provide more content at understanding the limitations of resources that the city has and how we might be able to manage this process. With that in mind, we started working on a plan to refresh all of the equipment in the council chambers for recording and for broadcasting. The equipment's roughly 12 years old at this point. We're concerned that at some point we're going to start experiencing some catastrophic failures, and we want to try to get ahead of that proactively and avoid that. We've been budgeting token dollar amounts for the past few years to be an emergency fund just in case, but we wanted to sort of take this in a holistic fashion and address it. With that in mind, the dollar amount in order to do a refresh of that size would be very difficult in a challenging budget year. So we started investigating what's called a public education and government channel fee, also known as a PEG fee. And PEG fees are written into cities' franchise agreements. Much like the city of DeKalb, other communities have this capability if they so choose to use it. The fee that we have written into ours is the city has the option to charge up to 35 cents per customer per month to the local television cable providers. In our case, that would be Comcast and Metronet. That would equal roughly about $4.20 a year per customer. So as part of this research, staff went through and reached out to several communities in the area that's outlined in the backup material for this item. Out of 18 communities, we found that roughly 10 have at one point or are currently charging a PEG fee in order to address equipment issues or refreshes in their community. The majority of them use the same model that we do, which is up to 35 cents per month. So there are a couple caveats to this that the council needs to know. The first is the PEG fee is separate from a franchise fee. Most communities in Illinois have a franchise fee. That's a fee that we charge as a privilege of using the right-of-way in the community, but it also, in an indirect method, will offset costs for permitting fees for work in the area, and also indirectly will also cover operational fees if the community does have a Channel 14 type arrangement. However, there aren't that many that actually have a PEG channel. So out of those, so that is one aspect that you need to keep in mind, is those two fees are separate. The second thing is that the fee activation would require a 120-day notice upon council approval to be able to be enacted. So we do want to keep that time frame in mind. Additionally, staff would have to provide an entire project to council to be approved before that could be, before that fee can be enacted. So the cable providers need to know what the total cost is of whatever project that we would be working on. And then during that period of time, once the fee is enacted, the customers would then be charged the 35 cents per month until the project is paid off. Then the fee would be deactivated. So we would have to come up with a project. We would have to present that to the cable providers. They would verify that it meets all of the criteria for being a PEG fee project. The charge would then be enacted upon council approval, and it would be charged until that dollar amount is paid off for that project. Additionally, and finally, the fee can only cover capital and infrastructure costs. It cannot be used for operational costs, the day-to-day costs that we incur to keep the channel going. So with that, we have a couple things that I'll need direction on. One is, do we want to enact a PEG fee? And if so, the second piece of this is, what project components should we include as part of this project so that we can go back as staff, create the entire project scope, and be able to present that back to council. So keep in mind that we have the council chambers hardware broadcast and record refresh that needs to be done. But there's another option that I want to let the council know about, and that is that NIU has expressed interest in the ability to directly broadcast to Channel 14. Keeping that in mind, we could offer more content to the channel without requiring more city resources to be used. In order to be able to accomplish that, we would need a fiber optic cable running from where they're broadcasting from. At the furthest point, that would be the convocation center. That line would have to come back to the nearest point, or the shortest distance would be our police department over on Lincoln Highway. So that could be an additional piece of this project should council decide that that would be something they would want to consider as part of the scope of this project. And I believe I've covered all the aspects of this, so I'm really happy to answer any questions or provide any more information if needed.
Let me start. Both of these scenarios certainly have interest to me, one being the fact that we really need to upgrade our equipment. If I've heard once, I've heard twice, the cable's out, it's not broadcasting, there's something wrong in our control room, the equipment is so old. So I think that makes sense. The other thing is with the additional programming that Northern might be able to provide through that fiber optic line, which again would qualify for this PEG funding. So both of those are good. My question is this, Mark. Given the fact that MetroNet is not up and running yet in DeKalb, given the fact that Comcast has been for some time, I'm going to throw out a figure of $50,000 for a project. Let's say we need $50,000 of new equipment that we're looking for to really upgrade in our equipment in the back, okay? At 35 cents per Comcast customer, what are we looking at in terms of a monthly revenue stream, if you will, from that PEG fee?
So, I had done a little bit of guesswork on this because cable providers are typically reluctant to provide customer information. I know that I've reached out to Comcast on this. They were, that is a proprietary thing for them, so they weren't completely forthcoming, but I think that our rep is willing to work with us, and I'm hopeful that I'll have a better answer when we go to present this.
You know what I'm
project.
getting at $50,000, it might be 2 months, it might be 3 months, it might be 3 years for us to realize that amount of money, and that's going to make it much more palatable to me as the mayor, saying to Dwayne Brown back there, hey, it's going to cost you $12 over the next 3 months, or it's going to cost you $120 over the next 30 months, or something like that. Do you see what I
Sure,
mean? So,
absolutely.
I mean, I think we have to put some numbers to that. But that's my question, that's my thought. Any additional thoughts or questions of Mark? Alderman Verbeek.
And quite surprising in my first 18 months to know how many people are watching and are interested, and how it is a critical service of what we do to our viewers that unfortunately aren't able to make it down here. So I think, to your point, Mayor, I would agree that let's find a way to make it sustainable to provide that service, which, how many people or how many viewers do we have? Do we have an estimate of that?
I don't really have a way of getting that information. It's, we don't have the ability to pull like Nielsen numbers or something along those lines. It's a little difficult for me to really say. Outside of, we could put together a survey, a community survey, and see if we can glean that information that way.
My sense is that we have quite a few out there.
Right.
We'll probably have more tonight, given the fact that the weather has, been somewhat askew, yeah. Alderman Fagan.
Yeah, I'm with Jerry on this, and wanted to find out the exact numbers on it. Do you ever think about figuring out how many users there are from our franchise fees, backing out of that? I mean, we make money
I
off
haven't.
that's one way I was thinking that you could back into those numbers and get a guesstimate.
Yeah, we certainly, that might be a possibility. I can work with finance to find out if that's a calculation we can make.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, should we use this money to bring fiber optic from NIU to us? Because what is the content that they want to bring into? I mean, is it something that they should be putting the money up for running the fiber optic instead of us?
So I should probably mention that it doesn't necessarily mean that the city would bear the entire burden of that cost. I think that we can work out a deal in partnership with NIU, and given the location of that fiber, I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but I am working with other agencies in the area that have an interest in having fiber optic cable in that area. So we may be able to offset some of that cost as part of a partnership to be able to, make
Right.
that a little bit more palatable.
Yeah, and the reason why I bring that up is I don't think the citizens should be paying for anything that other than for the benefit of themselves rather than for the benefit for NIU or anyone else that wants to access us. So I mean, I don't think that the people should be paying for anything that we benefit to NIU rather than the benefit to the people.
And my thought too, Pat, is converse of that. If Northern can provide programming, if Northern can do a Northern newscast at night, if Northern can do a sports program, if Northern can do something that our residents would have an interest in,
Right.
then I think we ought to avail ourselves. So I think that, to me, that NIU city connection should not be necessarily, who is it better for? Hopefully, it's better for both parties.
Right.
Yeah. Alderman Favor.
So I think it's a great idea, so I'll say yes right up front. With the comments from the mayor, I don't know if it might make sense to wait until we have MetroNet on board so that we're not giving an incentive maybe for someone to switch from Comcast to MetroNet.
Good point.
Don't want to do anything like that. I also had questions. I'd like to understand more of what the content that NIU would like to bring, and I guess what would be the city's, would we have, I guess, first right of refusal? If there was something like there was a special committee of the whole or something like that, would we preempt an NIU, let's say they wanted to do a basketball or volleyball game or something they wanted to broadcast, or some news items on campus? Would we preempt that, or, so we got to figure out how are we going to play together in this. And then I did have some questions about, you had provided, I don't know if that's just a proposal, or if that was, if we'd already gone with someone to do a proposal, or if this is just kind of what we're kind of ballparking what we need. I don't want to, I looked up a few things. I don't want to jump into every line, but I guess part of my questioning is directed towards how negotiable is some of this? I know there are options. I saw the Logitech keyboard and mouse, $130. I don't want to buy from 5 different vendors and wait for it all to show up, but $80 for a keyboard and mouse I think is pretty high end, and I don't know why we would necessarily need to go above that. I've saw, like the Dell monitors, I've looked at some very nice 24-inch HP monitors that are about half that price. So again, and then, so I don't know if we're gonna, I think it's a great idea. I want to go forward with it, and put together some parameters. And then I don't know if what we're going to do is do a bid for proposal, an RFP or a bid to get, so we can compare a couple different companies and see what we might be able to negotiate in terms of some of the costs. But I think it's a great idea.
So to answer your questions, yes, that is a rough estimate. We had an engineering firm, Sunrise Communications, come in. I've known them from other communities that have used them as well. And so I brought them in to take a look at our setup, and there were some adjustments that they felt were important, that would be cost saving and also be able to provide us with some options. That's just a rough quote. That dollar amount, by our own purchasing rules, we do have to go out to some sort of a request for proposal or a bid in order to make that work. We would probably do a request for proposal just to give vendors some flexibility in giving their opinion on what they feel would work best in this environment.
Okay. And I like the idea of using the existing cameras, and then perhaps we budget or earmark, kind of like the Public Works does with a well. They have an extra well on hand, so maybe we have an extra camera on hand that, should one fail, we can replace it, and then we budget one for the next year or something like that. So we use our equipment till it fails.
Sure.
Alderman Verbeek?
And there's likely a broader range of organizations that would be interested in utilizing our government access channel. How could dollars flow through to us for capital refresh, for funding equipment over time? Can funds come into us? Can corporations advertise on our government access channel and invest in that as part of their marketing strategy?
I'll defer to Attorney Frieders for that.
There are some pretty significant restrictions on the type of commercial activity that we can engage in using that. We can look into that further, but from past investigations into similar type ideas of either having marketing or potentially selling airtime on it, we were not able to find a methodology for doing that that would not run afoul of the very limited license that we have to use that airtime.
Sure. Thank you.
You know, if push comes to shove, though, what we need to do is to get this equipment back here in a working order so that those people who, at the very least, want to watch this city council meeting or committee of the whole meeting have the ability to be able to turn on their TV and know that that's something is working right here, you know? Tony?
I was going to ask, so, we were looking for viewership. I guess one of the potentials is views. How many YouTube videos of the committee meetings, of the Planning and Zoning Commission? You know, if we look at the different views, how many times that's been viewed, that'd give a somewhat of a ballpark. Maybe probably not as accurate as what the actual viewership would be, but directionally might be correct.
Okay, any other comments? Mark, do you have any other comments? I think we've given you enough, hopefully, direction to get some more definitive information. I don't know how we move forward on Tony's suggestion that we wait until MetroNet is fully built out. That may be just too long of a time, but we probably want to work that into the conversation.
Yes, so my understanding is council's suggestion is that the PEG fee is an appropriate funding mechanism, and that you do like the ability, not just the council chambers refresh, but you would also be interested in the NIU option as well. So yes, thank you very much.
Any further information or questions? If not, I would entertain a motion to recess so that this body can go into executive session to discuss, one, personnel under 5 ILCS 120/2C1, and for this council to discuss, number 2, pending or imminent litigation under 5 ILCS 120/2C11. I would, first of all, ask for a council to make a motion to go into recess.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we go into recess. Roll call.
I'm sorry, who seconded, please?
I did.
I'm sorry. Alderman Verbeek motioned. Alderman Fagan seconded. Lynn, roll call, please.
Fanouken,
Yes.
Markwart,
Yes.
Fagan,
Yes.
Verbeek,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
6 ayes.
We are in recess. City council meeting will begin at 6 o'clock. Thank you.